All right, if you're a Java dev working with Spring, you have definitely been here before. Constructor injection or setter injection. It feels like such a tiny detail, right? But believe me, making the right call here can be the difference between code that's a dream to work with and a total nightmare to maintain. So in this explainer, we're going to break it all down.
So, which path are you going to choose? And look, this isn't just about how you type out your code. No, this is a real strategic decision. It's going to directly affect how reliable, how testable, and just how clean your application really is. So, let's dive right in.
So, the dependency dilemma. Before we even get into comparing the two, we got to back up a little. Let's talk about the actual problem we're trying to solve. Why do we even need this whole dependency injection thing in the first place? Well, it really comes down to one word: complexity. Let me ask you this. Is your code tied in knots? You know that feeling, right? You're working on a project, you change one little thing, and suddenly everything breaks. It's like this massive, frustrating ripple effect. Well, if that sounds familiar, it's probably a classic sign of a problem called tight coupling.
And yeah, that's the real villain of the story: tightly coupled code. When your objects are in charge of creating their own dependencies, they basically get glued together. Your code becomes super rigid. Want to swap out a component for, say, a mock version for testing? Good luck. A change in one class means you have to go on this massive scavenger hunt to fix every single other class that uses it. It's just not maintainable.
All right, so that brings us to Spring's smart solution, because this is where Spring really shines. It completely changed the game by offering a totally different way to think about how our objects get the stuff they need to do their jobs.
The main idea here is something called inversion of control, or IOC for short. And honestly, the name kind of gives it away. You're inverting the control. You're taking that responsibility away from your code and handing it over to the Spring framework. Think of it like this. You wouldn't build a car by forging the engine and molding the tires yourself, right? No! A factory builds all the parts and delivers a finished car to you. Well, Spring's IOC container is that factory for your software objects.
And the way IOC actually works, the practical application, is through a pattern called dependency injection, DI. If IOC is the what, DI is the how. Instead of your object having to go out and find its own dependencies, the Spring container just injects them. It delivers them right where they need to go. And that is what finally breaks those tight-knit bonds we were talking about, leaving you with clean, modular, decoupled code.
So, we get it. Spring handles the injection. But how? How does it actually happen? This is where we get to the heart of the matter. The two main ways Spring gets this done. You've got constructor injection on one side and setter injection on the other. And yeah, they both get the same job done. But the choice between them, well, it all comes down to one single critical difference. And this one idea really changes everything. And here it is, mandatory versus optional dependencies. This is the whole ball game. You have to ask yourself, does my object absolutely positively need this other thing to work? Is it essential for it to even exist? Or is it just a nice to have, something that could be added later? Your answer to that question is what's going to tell you exactly which injection style to use.
All right, constructor versus setter, a head-to-head comparison. Let's really put these two side by side. We're going to see how they stack up in a few really important categories.
Okay, so this table really lays it all out. Let's walk through it. First, look at dependency guarantee. With constructor injection, you get this amazing promise. An object will never be created unless all its dependencies are there. It can't exist in an incomplete state. That's huge for reliability. But there's a catch. That strictness can bite you. What if bean A needs bean B, and bean B needs bean A? You've got a circular dependency. Constructor injection will just throw an error and fail, right there on startup. Setter injection, on the other hand, is more flexible. It creates the empty objects first, then uses the setters to wire them up, so it can handle that circular mess. And that's really the core trade-off, isn't it? An ironclad guarantee up front versus more flexibility at runtime.
So, with all that in mind, how do you actually decide? Let's get practical and lay out some clear guidelines for when to use each one.
So you should definitely choose constructor injection when your dependencies are mandatory. Simple as that. If your object is completely useless without another object, that's a mandatory dependency. Using the constructor guarantees that your object is born in a valid, complete state. This helps you avoid a whole ton of annoying bugs like those dreaded null pointer exceptions. It's just the safer, more robust way to go for your essential components.
Okay, but what about setter injection? When should you reach for that? Well, it's perfect for any dependency that's optional. Things that your object can use but doesn't absolutely need to function. And, like we just talked about, it's your get-out-of-jail-free card for those tricky circular dependencies. Basically, anytime you need flexibility more than you need that upfront guarantee, setter injection is your friend.
Honestly, it all just boils down to this one simple idea. If you walk away remembering only one thing from this explainer, let it be this quote right here. Constructor injection is for mandatory dependencies, and setter injection is for optional dependencies. That's it. That's the guiding principle for this entire decision.
So now that you know the difference, how are you going to design your next Spring component? Really think about it. The next time you're about to wire up a new bean, just take a second, pause, and ask yourself that one simple question. Is this dependency essential or is it optional? Because your answer won't just tell you whether to use a constructor or a setter, it's going to guide you towards building much better, more reliable, and way more maintainable code in the long run.